This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Paddle and Fin Podcast, the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment, where we try to improve our skills as an angler by learning new techniques or improving the ones we already know. I'm your host, Ryan Milford. Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast, the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sean.
There we go. And so tonight it's just us. We don't have a guest. Nobody wants to talk to us anymore. So now we're just gonna do an episode and just kind of go over our experience with this whole live bracket tournament we've been doing. I haven't done many tournament type things. Definitely haven't done anything live. Sean, this was his first tournament ever. So, we just wanted to, as noobs to the tournaments, we wanted to go over our experience that we had with this so far. We still got more to go, but it's just so far in our first rounds. Both of us skunked in the first round and had to do a rematch. Luckily, our competitors skunked as well. So, we're going to go over that. But first, let's go over the Noob tournament. It's live.
It's happening. And some people are fishing the crap out of it.
Yeah, we had we got some pretty good noobs in this. But yeah, I'm going to pull this up on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to see this. Let me know if you see that, Sean.
I do not see it yet.
Still see me?
Yep. There you go. Oh, now I see me. There I go. Now I see it.
All right, here we go. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it right here. Now, we're recording this on Saturday night, so we're not quite 48 hours into the tournament yet. So right now we got Justin Staley in first place with 84 inches, and Justin was slaying it. Like, he had a limit within like the first 4 or 5 hours, something like that. His biggest fish, 18 and a half.
Boom. Look at that football.
And second place right now, we got Richard May with 75.5 inches. Biggest fish, 17. And for anybody that sees his pictures that was wondering, his board is orange and don't look like what we approved. He did get that approved with us. It is based on a yellow hog trough, and he just had it custom painted or wrapped or whatever it is, but it is a yellow hog trough. It's got a custom job on it, and he got that approved with us before the tournament started. So in third, we got Doc Acosta. What?
I'd say Acosta.
Yeah, out in Texas. He's at 74 3/4. Big fish, 17 1/4. And we got somebody in Tennessee right here, number 4, Adam Chapman. Actually, and Adam Chapman, the one that won the free entry fee?
I think so, yep.
That it was him. So awesome for that. Big fish, 15 1/4. We got a smallmouth there.
And the top 4 all have limits, so that's a good start already. So now they'll start, weeding out the smaller ones as they catch more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how many people have fish on the board right now? So we have 23 people So about half the field have at least one fish on the board right now. Do a quick run through on what everybody's got. So number 5, Craig Pitts, 65. Uh, number 6, Garrett Ferguson at 63.75. 7, Josh Cravens, 63.5. At 8, we got Christopher I'm sorry if I butchered your name, 46.5. At 9, we got Randy Bean at 38.5. 10, we got Dalton Hendry at 28.5. 11, we got Zach Gramza, 27. 12, Presley Wilson at 26.75. At 13, we got Nick Nacrilli, 26.25. 14, we got the one and only Sean Landry here, 26 inches, beating me so far. 15, Braden Raleigh, we got 18.75. 16, Luke Coffey at 16.25. 17, we got Travis Boyd. Travis, he had an issue. I think he put in the wrong size. It says 15.25. I believe it was actually 14.25. Well, yeah, his is actually 14.25. He accidentally put in the wrong number on that, so that's got to be fixed. 18, we got Dylan Parks at 14.5. He should be moved up to 17, and Travis moved to 18. Then we got 19th, we got Stephen Redfield at 13.5. Then we got me in 20th at 13.25. 21 is Wade Kinney at 13.25. 22, we got O'Heath Barkley at 11.75. And 23, we got Nathan Ratliff at 11.25. So that's everybody that's got fish on the board right now. Trying to look through to see what big fish is so far, because we got a prize that was donated.
There's a 19.
I see a 19. So it looks like that's the big fish. So Josh Cravens, who's in 7th, he's got big fish so far. Look at that. Trying to zoom in. I don't think it's letting me zoom in though. But yeah, he's got a 19-inch smallmouth right here.
That's a heck of a smallmouth. Where's he from? It doesn't say.
Josh Cravens. Yeah, it don't say where he's from, so I'm not 100%.
That's a nice smallie. I mean.
Yeah, that's nice. So, am I back to normal now?
I don't see you. I see me. There we go. Now I see you.
All right. All right. So yeah, that's the results as of right now, Saturday night for the Noob tournament. So what's your thoughts on that? Is that about what you were expecting at this point in the game? Were you expecting less, more? What?
Well, first of all, I'm floored by the number of people that signed up. That's awesome.
Yes.
I was not expecting that many, and it's been a pleasant surprise. But also, I mean, heck, somebody putting up 84 inches right off the bat, 2 days, 3 days in. Not even that, really, 2 days in. So that's amazing. That's I don't know that I was expecting that right off the bat, but that's cool. Obviously, some people might be able to fish more than others, so that's going to play a role in that a little bit. But still, it's good to see the whole way down, halfway through the field, that at least half the field has a fish. So, you never know if the people who don't have fish just didn't make it out yet. So, it's just definitely good to see. So.
Yeah, this is still early. There's still plenty of time for people to put fish on the board, and like you said, it's awesome with having that many people sign up. 47 anglers signed up for this. I was expecting like maybe 15, and man, like I really appreciate everybody that's like supported us and shared it and everything. That's really, it's mind blowing, really.
And for any of the listeners that didn't get in on this round, we are planning to keep doing this. So, if you're seeing, I like what you're seeing and you're like, yeah, I might be able to take a chance and try that. We're definitely going to keep this rolling, hopefully. So, you might have missed the first month, but just hang in there. And when the next one starts, make sure you get in there and sign up. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Trust me, because
yeah, and we also started a Facebook group specifically to go around our noob tournaments. This is called Paddle and Fin Noob Tournaments. I believe it's linked on the Paddle and Fin podcast Facebook page. But I posted this in that group, but just in case anybody didn't see it, the prizes for this tournament, fifth and fourth place will both get a $10 JigMaster gift card. So you basically get your money back just in a gift card for JigMasters. Third place, get a $25 JigMaster gift card, and we'll get a TRC cover from us. Second place, going to get an Angler Bullseye and a $25 JigMasters gift card and a TRC cover. And first place is going to get a custom catch board. It'll have, I believe it's going to have like the Paddle and Fin logo on the inside of the fence, have your name on the top, and then something along the lines of like May Noob Tournament winner, champion, something like that on the outside of the fence. So that's pretty cool. You're going to get that. You're going to get an Angler Bullseye and a $50 JigMasters gift card. So that's pretty cool for, a small entry fee tournament like this. But a lot of that was made possible because of the number of people that signed up. And most tournaments pay out like the top 10% of the people that pay out. So we're right at that, maybe just a little above that. So paying out 5 spots. So yeah.
And then just to reiterate, Ryan and I are not eligible for that. So that takes 2 spots out of that, that you don't have to worry about beating us. So
yeah. I didn't mention that. Yep. We actually have a price on our head. Do need to go over that. So as we mentioned earlier, there is a prize for big bass, the biggest bass in the tournament. It don't matter what place you're in. All that matters is who's got the biggest fish of the tournament, biggest single fish. And they're going to win. Justin Staley is part of Walton Rods. He's donating a rod. It can either be a casting or spinning rod, but whoever gets the biggest fish of the tournament will win a rod from Walton Rods. And then for me and Sean, I told Brian he shouldn't do this, but he did it. but anybody that beats me or Sean in the tournament gets a free entry fee into the next round or next month tournament. So there's going to be a lot of free entry fees going.
When I saw that, I was like, "Oh wow, that could be a sizable chunk." But
yeah. But that's what Brian wanted to do, and it's his podcast. He's the big dog and everything. So that's what he wants to do. That's what we're going to do. But that's everybody except for whoever's in first place. First place will not be allowed to join any more noob tournaments. At that point, you're not a noob anymore. You graduated to the big leagues. You can go do your KBF or local stuff, whatever you want to do, but can't come back here.
You can still listen and hang out, but you have to find some tougher competition than the noobs tournament.
Yeah, we don't dislike you at that point. We just
we're actually happy for you. That means you graduated. Yeah.
But is there anything else you think of we didn't cover with the Paddle and Fin Noob Tournament?
I mean, I was going to say it's just I had some what's the word, some fears about just how the whole thing would work, and today was the first time I ever submitted a fish photo, and so to know that that went well for the most part. I had a little bit of fun on my second fish because while I was taking the photo on my board, my rod got caught in some trees and I ended up breaking off the rod tip and the
Oh
trees above
man.
me. So, but I got the fish or a picture of the fish, and so I just CPR is definitely a process, and the more you practice it, the better you get. But there really isn't anything to worry about it. As long as you follow the steps and follow the rules, you should be good to go. So
Yeah, and I kind of had some issues yesterday whenever I caught my fish with taking the picture. I caught it. I've done I did a monthly last month, and I took pictures of fish in my current kayak, but I've changed up some stuff, had it set up a little different, and my board didn't sit the way it as nicely as it did before. So I had issues with that, and then my fish was a butthole and did not want to cooperate at all. Didn't want to keep his mouth closed. Didn't want, like, he was sitting there flapping his tail up and down on the board, and it's getting frustrating. So I ended up putting him back in the net and just setting him back in the water, setting things up better for me. And once I got everything the way I wanted it, put him back on the board. By that time, he'd done calmed down a little bit. Got my picture, and I was good to go.
I ended up having to retake a picture, so because I didn't notice I had my measurement good. He was mouth closed right up against the end, but I didn't realize that half of my tag was cut out. So I went back. Now I might try. I saw a couple people write it on their hands. I'm wondering if you do that with Sharpie, how hard it is to get it off.
It's not bad. I
Okay.
did that at the first part of that last monthly that I did until I got me a tourney tag. Um, that, but that is good of you that you made sure that the picture was good before you released the fish, because that is a pretty big noob mistake that tends to happen. Is you don't check your picture and then something ends up being wrong, and then you either get a deduction or completely disqualified fish over a simple mistake.
Right, right. And I think it was just today I was so happy to have caught the second fish, and I saw my rod get caught in the tree limbs, but I was like, I'll worry about that later. And I should have just chilled out, put the fish in the net, let it
You're
hang out.
excited. You're
I
too
was,
excited.
I was like, all right, finally, and so that, I mean, it was all, and that it just step by step, I went way too fast on certain things, and I had time to save my rod tip. I didn't because I was just jerking it around and going too fast. So I know now just to calm down and take it easy and keep my wits about me, because you can make dumb mistakes when you're hurrying like that. So
How much did you break off?
just from the about halfway up between the tip and the next guide down. So
So you should
not,
be able to put like a tip on there and be good to
yeah,
go.
yeah. It's just going to be 2 inches shorter. So
Yeah, a couple inches shorter, a little bit stiffer. Yeah.
so
Right. So I guess we can move on into our live bracket tournaments and our experience with those.
yeah, that's definitely been. I mean, I don't know if I had a choice if I would have opted for that to be my first experience, because I definitely think the pressure is more
Yeah,
when
you got
you're.
everybody watching you.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how many times I was like, I'm just gonna backlash left and right, and it's gonna be 4 hours of me picking out backlashes. But for the most part, I don't think that was too much of a that I spent a lot of time doing that. I had a few, but nothing crazy. So
Yeah, I don't think I had any too bad either. I do have a reel that sounds like it's going to blow up on me that you could hear on the live stream. But yeah, it kind of does that and stops. I'm not really sure what's going on with it.
hmm.
But yeah, so Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? Or?
Go ahead. You can go first.
All right. Well, my first matchup was Josh Smith from the Dark Waters Kayak Fishing Podcast. And one thing that was a little more, I'm not going to say terrifying, but kind of made me a little more nervous about the whole thing is our matchup was the very first week that we did this. So, with y'all and the guys going this week, y'all seen the weeks previous. You've seen kind of the do's and don'ts and how it kind of flows and runs. Where we didn't really. We're just kind of going with it, And so when we're working on camera angles and trying to get it right for that, and I was in a new kayak to me. Like I had just picked it up the day before, never been in it before until this day. And but I went into it confident. I felt confident about what I was throwing, but I second guessed myself on where I was going. Like 2 days prior, this one spot I had caught a couple decent fish, both in the 15 range, and like felt pretty good about that. Well, I decided to go to this other spot that was a couple miles further into the creek, and I don't know why I did it, to be honest. I really don't know, but I did, and yeah, I don't even know if I got a bite all day. Maybe I might have. I can't remember, but I don't even know. I don't remember getting a bite all day.
That makes it tough.
Yeah, but like a couple hours into it, I had to pee. So I go over to this little spot where it's got like some rocks that are just under the water. So I'm like, it's a good place to like park the kayak and hop out and run up here and, do my business. So I do that. I park, I get out, I go up here. Well, while I go up here, like I'm looking down and there's like, I don't even know what to call it. You call it like a ditch or what? It's basically like a big storm drain way up the ways, and water flows, through there into the lake. Well, the lake was a little dingy, but it was like shallow rocks right here, and then it deepened up once you got back in there, and it's maybe 20 foot wide.
Okay.
And it's about 10, 15 foot deep once you got back in there, and it's crystal clear. You can see everything. And that was awesome. Like I always think it's cool to see what's on the bottom and everything. But I'm looking, I don't really see any fish or anything. Maybe a couple of like small fish, like not bass, but so I see this tree laying down in the water. And I'm looking over at it, and all of a sudden I see a fish swim by, a bass, and I'm like, oh crap, there's a bass. And I stand up and I start looking, and there's probably 4 or 5 fish on bed around this tree in about probably 15 foot of water or so, somewhere around that. And I'm like, there's fish right here. I found some. And rewind a little bit. My original plan with this being like maybe a couple miles from the other launch that I was going to go to, if this failed, my plans were to start pedaling and go closer to the area that I was fishing at a couple days prior, and hit a couple spots I had out there. Well, so I found these bedfish, and I sat there for pretty much the rest of the tournament, 2 hours, trying to get a bite or some type of reaction out of these fish. I threw everything I could. I threw jig, Ned rig, shaky head, swim bait, and I'm sure there was much more that I'm drawing a blank on right now that I threw, but I threw almost everything I had in my box at these fish, and they would like see it and look at it, or sometimes they would like kind of swim away and then come back, and then sometimes they would just look at it and not move, not flinch, nothing. I think I had one time look like they might be a little interested, but then they quit. So I don't know what I was doing wrong there. I've never bed fished before. But I saw the fish there, and one of the things I've kicked myself the most with is staying on there so long instead of sticking with my plan. Is why it's hard to like decide like, okay, I see fish, I know fish are right here. Do I continue to try to get them to bite, or do I move on and try to like hope that I find some more fish? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's kind of the dilemma I had. I chose to stay there. It didn't pan out for me, but yeah, I went further into that ditch later on, and I didn't really see many other fish up in there. But then, like the last 10 minutes, Josh Smith caught a fish, held it up for the camera, and his phone died. So he wasn't able to get a picture of that fish. So it did not count. So technically, we both had 0 inches by the end of the tournament, and we had to do a rematch. So Sean, he hosted it, and we did a 2-hour rematch. All right, thank you. But we had a rematch that fall on Friday, a 2-hour rematch, and man, with that, for maybe the first 5 minutes, and that's being generous, I threw a swim bait and came up on a little lay down, picked up the jig. Jig's kind of my go-to, and started casting at that. Went around a bend. There's somebody bank fishing over here, so I went wide around them. Came around the corner. There's like a bunch of chunk rock along the bank. I start casting like 5 or 6 foot of water, and I ended up hanging into a fish. It was a smaller one, but it counted. It was like 12 and a half. And so that made me feel good. I wasn't going to skunk again. And then I went a little bit further down, and it was pretty fast. It was the next 10, 15 minutes or so. Like I hung into my second fish, which was 12 and a quarter, another small one, but second fish on the board. So I was feeling pretty good at that point. I was trying to not let myself get too excited and keep fishing, because I knew that it's a 5 fish limit. So two decent fish is going to beat my 2 small fish. So I kept grinding, trying to find some more fish. I kind of stuck with that pattern I had, jig on the rocks and a little bit in that 5 or 6 foot range. I might have got one more bite. I can't remember, but yeah, I didn't get anything after that. And then with like 45 minutes left, Josh Smith caught his first fish. And within about 15 minutes, he had 3 total fish on the board. And yeah, I was kind of panicking a little bit there, but I was still grinding it out, trying to find me another fish, hoping I'd get at least 2 more small ones. 2 more, little fish I think that would have put me back in the lead, but it didn't happen. Josh got me, and so I'm moving on to the losers bracket to face Jason Ricketts. But But one thing, I did an interview on Josh's podcast, Dark Waters Kayak Fishing Podcast, and he put something cool in my head is to I need to work on like a search bait type technique, because some of my favorite techniques are just slow, and you can't really cover water to find fish like that in a 2 or 4 hour window. Those you got to be able to find some fish, and it's harder to do that with a slow moving bait. So that's something that I've kind of taken away from that and gonna work on. But yeah, that's about it so far for me.
All right. Well, like you said, our experiences are kind of similar. My first round, I was up against JP, and my biggest worry going into it really was the weather. It was forecasted all week long. I kept thinking, I got a week, it's going to change. But it actually just ended up getting worse and worse. And so Saturday night, I'm looking at the forecast, and it's like, 9 to 100% chance of rain from 8 to 12. And I was just like, worrying about whether it's going to be lightning. I don't want to just bail on this if it's lightning, but, I also want to be safe about it. And I don't really have real good rain gear. I have a hunting jacket that's rainproof, and then I had bibs that were somewhat rainproof, but I didn't have necessarily the best equipment for pouring rain. And so that was really my biggest concern going in. I kept telling myself and other people who were asking me, hey, this is my first tournament ever. I'm going in with no expectations of how it's going to go. So I really, didn't fear that aspect of it as much as just the unknown with the weather and stuff. So I think right off the bat, I had some issues getting my camera to stay in the mount, my phone to stay in the mount right, and I just didn't get off to a good start. I was comfortable with the weather because I ended up not having any thunderstorms. Now, it did rain on me pretty much the whole time, and I think part of me skunking was that. I'd like to at least think a good part of it is because I have
We'll blame it on that.
So, for 4 hours, JP and I grinded it out. Neither of us, I think JP caught one fish that was too small. It didn't meet the 12-inch minimum. So, at the end of 4 hours, neither of us had a fish. I really didn't have much in the way of bites or anything, and I tried a ton of areas. I think I went from one end of the lake to the other like 2 times over in that 4 hours, just trying every spot I could think of. And I know this lake pretty well. I know what's shallow, what's deep, where they usually spawn, and so I thought I could find them even in the rain, and it ended up not happening. JP and I both fished then from 12 to 2 off the live stream. Neither of us caught any fish, and finally he called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to just call this and we'll do a redo?" And at that point I was drenched, dry underneath, but my hunting jacket weighed like 20 pounds.
Yes, please, yes.
I was like, "Oh, thank you so much. Yes, let's do it." So at that point we called it, and went home and dried out and everything. And so I was like, all right, I lived to see another day here. Looking back on it, I feel like I missed an opportunity there to put JP away, because any fish would have at that point would have done it, but it didn't happen. So we moved on to today. JP and I went out this afternoon, I guess, 12 to 2, and I started off. I felt way more comfortable. The weather was beautiful. It was I had water temps of 60 degrees and air temps 65. It was 70, 72 by the time I got off the water today. So I had no one to blame but myself today. So the water was a little, the visibility was down definitely because we had rain the last 2 days. I really wanted to go to the river, but our river is basically at flood stage right now, so or a little below. So that was almost a no-go. I saw on Facebook when I got home that River Rescue was out rescuing kayakers left and right today. So definitely was a good idea to steer clear of the river, at least in my neck of the woods. So I feel like that was the right decision. And again, like I said, the clarity was low. It was chocolate milk, but I still ended up blanking, and that was kind of the only thing I didn't want to do. I was like, I don't care if JP beats the pants off me. I just don't want to skunk again. And so I feel like my first strategy was I had seen back in one area that the water temps were warmer, and I saw fish jumping there the previous Sunday, and I saw yesterday when I went out to scout a little bit, I saw fish jumping there a ton. And even it was clearer enough there in that real shallow area that I could see. It was very like stick kind of bushes, and I hadn't gone back there on Sunday because I couldn't pedal back there because it was too shallow. So yesterday when I was scouting around, I just put my fins up and actually paddled through the area. And as I was paddling through, I was seeing little clouds of, the fish kicking up stuff when they, when I'd spook them. So I'm like, okay, there's definitely fish here. And I think this is where I'm going to start tomorrow morning. Well, I got there. That is where I started this morning. And again, fish were jumping and I could see I was spooking them. But then somebody mentioned, "You sure they're not carp?" And I was like, I don't think so. But if they are, then there's a ton of them here. And then I started seeing them, and I saw my first one that I actually didn't spook. He came swimming towards me, and I was like, it is carp. And then I saw one jump, and I actually could see it. The belly was like that yellowy kind of reddish and I was like, they are carp. Well, there goes my plan. So then that kind of put me in scramble mode. And, I'm kind of the same way. My go-to is a wacky rig Senko, and that is not a quick bait to throw. That is throw and let it sink and pick it up, nothing, pick it up again until you get something. And so I was like, well, that's probably not going to be, especially if I only have 2 hours. If I had 4, maybe, but 2 hours, I was like, I got to use moving stuff. I had luck on this lake with a crawl colored crankbait, and I also thought that a jackhammer would be good because it was like the water visibility was low. So I'm like, well, maybe they'll feel it more than they see it, and that'll help. But so I threw the crankbait a ton. I threw the chatterbait a ton, and I stayed away from my comfort zone because I didn't feel like I could cover enough water with it. And so after 2 hours, JP actually got 2 fish. Neither of them were huge, but it was enough. And I skunked. So after we ended the call and we congratulated JP, I was like, you know what, I was at the whole way other end of the lake from where my truck was parked. So I said, I'm just going to fish my way back to the truck. And, and as soon as the call was over and I, could slow down and let my brain just take it easy, I caught my first fish. And I was like, that's crazy. And then,
what'd you catch it on?
Wacky rig Senko. Yep. I was a weighted. I when I was in that sticky stuff, I had Texas rig Senko on, and I took off the extra wide gap hook and put on my normal wacky rig hook that I use because it has like a weed guard on it. And but I left the peg and the weight on it because I was like, maybe it'll sink faster. And that's what I caught the 2 fish I caught on today. And like I said, as I was getting off the water, I was noticing more people catching fish around me. Up until that point, as I was pedaling back, I passed like probably 10 people, and they all hey, any luck? No, I haven't talked to a person who caught a fish yet. So, I was like, okay, well, okay, I don't feel so bad because it sounds like a lot of people were struggling. And then I caught those 2 fish, and then right as I hit the bank and was pulling my kayak out of the water, like 2 or 3 people on the bank there caught fish. So I think if I would have stayed, I actually probably could have helped myself in the new tournament a little bit. But I'm confident that if I go back, I can and take my time and fish what I know, that I can get my limit there. So that's pretty much how it went.
Now you got me contradicting myself. I said I need to learn a search bait technique so I can cover more water, and then you're like, well, I went with the slower technique that I know well, and that's when I was successful. So it's like,
but I constantly second guess myself when I throw something I don't know. Like I'm like, chatterbait to me? I feel like it's pretty much chuck and wind. I mean, you can add pops and hops or slowdowns and startups and stuff, but for the most part, I feel like you can't mess that up. But yet, I have never caught a fish on a chatterbait at that lake. I've caught them on the river before, but I've never caught one on that lake throwing it. So I'm like, am I not throwing it in the right spots? But even that, I mean, I tried throwing it at the bank. I tried throwing it deep. I tried throwing it by the bridges. I feel like it should catch fish, but I just can't make it work. And then the same with the crankbait. Last year, this time, two Saturdays in a row, I caught my limit only on that craw-colored crankbait. And at that point, I had never thrown a crankbait before. So I was like, well, heck, I got this down. I'll put that in my back pocket as something I can use. But today that didn't work. Now, whether that was water clarity or just, a different set of circumstances, I don't know. But it definitely had me second guessing myself. Like, am I doing something wrong, or, what's the deal? But
yeah, and that kind of made me think of something that I've been told before is don't fish memories, fish conditions. So that kind of, you saying that, last year you like you were able to get them on that, but like you said, water clarity could be different, water temperature could be different, all that kind of stuff.
Even wind direction and stuff like that plays a big role in that. So,
but you're talking about the whole chatterbait thing. I caught my first chatterbait fish not long ago. So, I've been using it quite a bit, and I haven't had any more luck off of it. And I've been having like kind of the same frustration. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this like I've been told to do it. I've had success doing it like this before. Why isn't it working now? And I'm honestly convinced that what lure you're using, whatever technique you're using, isn't as much as big a deal as where you're putting it. I think my biggest issue right now with fishing is trying to figure out just where the fish are. I don't think it's necessarily my lure selection or my presentation with that lure. It's I'm not putting it where the majority of fish are. I'm looking into a fish that just so happened to be up over here, but most fish aren't over there. They're somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, I think with me and the chatterbait, the fact that it is a more expensive lure, I tend not to throw it as close to cover as I probably should, because it's always in the back of my mind. I don't spend a ton of money on my tackle. I do, some, but if I lose a chatterbait, it hurts, and so maybe I'm not throwing it as tight to cover as I need to be, and that's something I need to work on. But I'm still, like I said, learning the baitcaster, and I don't feel like I'm as accurate with it as I am with a spinning rod. And I know a lot of people say the opposite, that they're way more accurate with the baitcaster, but that's definitely not me. And so even when I think that might be part of it, that I'm not getting it as close to cover as I should or need to be, and whether that's half subconscious just so I don't lose them as much, I don't know. But Definitely, I think you're right.
But man, what you were just saying, I cannot cast a spinning rod accurately at all. Like you know, everybody's seen that I'm kind of getting more and more into the Ned rig, and you pretty much have to throw that on a spinning setup. I've mainly been using it in deeper water, and I don't really throw it around structure because I know I'm gonna throw it like on the structure. Like I cannot cast them accurately at all. That's something I probably just need to put a weight on and go out in the backyard and practice. But I was gonna show you this. I just got these in yesterday. It's little micro chatterbaits.
Wow, check that
Right.
out.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta try that out. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna have to throw this on a spinning rod. It's only like, I think like an 1/8 ounce chatterbait.
Okay.
It was made by Z-Man. I was thinking maybe put like one of those TRD crawls on here for a trailer.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I got a couple different colors in it. Got the white one and the black and blue. Brad Hicks gave me a cool idea for those. He said he's been thinking about trying them in the rivers for smallmouth. Be thinking that they'll hit it, and it brought me back to when we talked to
Bill Schultz,
no, why am I blanking right now? Ohio.
Steve Coomer.
Steve Coomer. Wow, sorry, I blanked. It brought me back when we talked to Steve Coomer, and he was talking about smallmouth. The big smallmouth tend to go for the small crawl presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like a small TRD crawl on that little chatterbait. Man, I feel like it's got to work, right? Right. It's got to.
It sounds like it. I had a similar experience the last time I was out on the river. I've been throwing the stuff that Bill Schultz talked about, the curly tail grub, the teeny wee craw, swim bait. And while I was out there, I hadn't had much luck. I've caught one smallie on the river this year, but I ran into a guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I just caught 4 down there." And I was like, "What the heck are you throwing?" And he was throwing a rooster tail. And to me, I'm like, "That's tiny," And I'm throwing all these baits that are way bigger, and he's doing half decent on a rooster tail. So, I think there's definitely some truth to that. That they might go for those smaller profiles.
Yeah. And not to take away from what you're saying, but I've learned recently that you've got to take what other people say about what they caught and what they caught it on with a grain of salt.
Well, I actually saw this guy catch 2, and he showed me
Okay.
the rooster tail, so I knew he wasn't lying, at least mostly. So,
Well, I recently ran into a guy out on the water, and was like, "Hey, you had any luck?" He's like, and I hadn't had a bite all day. And he's like, "Yeah, I've been wearing them out." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "What are you going for?" Like thinking maybe he's going for bluegill or something. He's like, largemouth, smallmouth, rock bass, all this. And I'm like, "What are you catching them on?" He's like, "Rooster tail." I'm like, "Really?" So, coming to find out, this guy has a YouTube channel. And I watched his video from that day. I know it was the day out there because the video had my truck in it. And like this guy didn't catch a single smallmouth or largemouth. He's catching like all white bass, like little white bass the whole day. And I'm like, does this dude really like just mess with me? Like,
yeah, no, I definitely, and I've had times like I've come as I'm getting off the water. If I talk to a guy and he says, I like those days that I killed it on the Senko. As I'm getting off the water, I'll pass a guy and he's like, "Hey, do you have any luck?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." He's like, "What are you throwing?" Because I'm not having any luck. And I'll give him a Senko or 2 and just say, "Hey, go try this," Because a lot of times I have them just laying on my deck so that if I tear one or lose one, I can just throw another one on quick. And so, I don't mind sharing that, and maybe that's not good because maybe that adds to the fishing pressure or whatever. But I
Yeah.
feel like, I'm just trying to help, the sport grow. And, the more people who catch fish, I think it's going to make them want to keep fishing. So, and I know how I feel when I skunk. So I don't want other people to feel that. So but I've had definitely the same experience where had guys tell me things that, definitely either didn't pan out or didn't seem like they were true. So
Yeah, I'm the same way. I want to help. Like, obviously, we run this podcast, trying to help everybody be able to catch more fish. So, like, that's just kind of who we are. We like to help people, help them succeed and try to succeed a little bit ourselves at the same time.
yep.
But yeah,
I said
man.
I had to thank God for keeping me humble because, it was definitely humbling today. And you're talking about Brad though, and one of the things I had in my box that I was going to try was a Project Z chatterbait with the almost like the jig guard on it. It has like the weed guard like a jig does,
Yeah.
but it's a chatterbait. And I was like, you know what? I can probably throw that in all sorts of crap and still get it out. But at the end of the day, I opened up my box and I was like, oh, I forgot that was in there. I was so focused on trying to throw what I had tied on that I didn't even think, what else could I try? So that's another thing that I'll have to keep in the back of my mind is don't, if something's not working, don't be afraid to try something else. So.
Well, something that I've started trying is I've got this year I've switched all my tackle to these smaller boxes. And I got a milk crate on my kayak, so I just throw them in my milk crate. But I've got one that's got go-tos on it. So it's got a little bit of everything, things that I might actually use. And I keep it. My kayak's got like a couple slots just big enough for those um, the smaller boxes up front. So I keep it up front with me. So you know, I I really don't get into my milk crate that much since I started doing that. I'm pretty much, unless I run out of whatever I'm using in that box, I pretty much use that box the entire time I'm out there.
Yeah, that makes it's a good idea because I tend to go with what I have tied on, and then I don't always either. It's that I don't want to take the time to retie something, and maybe that just means I need to have more rods on the boat. Although I have enough trouble keeping the 4 I usually bring out of the trees and
Yeah,
stuff.
already breaking them and stuff.
I know, right? So maybe that's not the best idea. I did start with my crankbaits and stuff. I use the quick snaps so that I can change those in and out pretty quick. And but just like today when I was like, well, I'd like to keep the chatterbait tied on, but I want to try this. Well, I'll just keep throwing the chatterbait, because it makes more sense. The water's dirty. The vibration should be good. And really, I should have changed up just because as much as it made sense in my mind, I didn't have confidence in it. So I think that's another big thing. I've heard that over and over, and I didn't listen to that today, so.
Well, right on, man. Well, we're kind of winding down here. Is there any final thoughts or last minute things we should mention?
I don't know of anything. I mean, for all the guys fishing the Noob tournament, keep going out there and working at it, getting those limits and changing out the small fish for the big fish, and we'll see where we end up.
Yeah, and make sure you join the Facebook group for this for the noob tournaments. It's called Paddle and Fin Noobs Tournaments. But I need to edit that. It says Noobs Tournaments. It should be Noob Tournaments. So I'll probably edit that here in a minute. But yeah, go ahead and join that. That's going to be where we post updates You can ask questions. You can just talk about fishing. If you want to say like, hey, this was my day today. I caught 3 or 4 and, had a good time. Well, that's cool. Like, we're all there, to support each other and enjoy each other. No judgment based on whatever skill you have, whether you're a great fisherman or not. Give each other advice and pointers and just what. So yeah, join that. Invite some friends there that might be interested in the Noobs tournaments. But yeah, that's about all I got.
Yeah, and bottom line, just have fun. If you're out there, don't get stressed. I got stressed today and it didn't help. So as soon as I, chilled out and took it easy, and I started doing better. So yeah, just have fun. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're doing this for anyway. So
right on.
Cool, man. Well, I guess I will take us out with our normal outro. So this has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment on the Paddle and Fin podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and keep checking us out because we're bringing you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips.
Later, everybody.
See you guys.
Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N, and fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddle and fin. If you got a question, comment, or want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N, and fin @gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at Paddle and Fin. Shout out to our show supporters, Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You can put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.